Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I am in a very beautiful city called Nizhny Novgorod. I'm here because a lot of people in the comment section say that Moscow and St. Petersburg are the only cities that are safe in Russia, but I will prove you guys wrong today. So this is midnight. I feel safe and I'm walking out, capturing all the places around this beautiful city. I'm sure that after watching this video, you won't have any doubt that Moscow is not the only safe place in Russia. Almost all the cities in Russia are quite safe. I've been to many cities that I'll be showing you in the coming videos. Stay tuned and enjoy the video. Let's go. Well friends, as I promised in my last video about Nizhny Novgorod, I am back with my impressions of the enchanting night city. Despite feeling a bit tired after the trip, I left my cozy hotel after a delicious dinner and embarked on a stroll around the captivating nightlife. And luckily for me, I stumbled upon a charming site right outside the hotel, the Nizhny Novgorod Fair building, a historic landmark dating back to the 17th century and still standing as the largest exhibition center in the Volga region. At one point, I couldn't help but feel like I was in a red square in Moscow, near the iconic GUM building, but this fountain, working even in the dead of the night, brought me back to the beauty of Nizhny Novgorod. This place is a haven for lovers of romance. You can find cozy swings where couples can sway together, or you can settle in with a good book and admire the breathtaking views. Just imagine how alluring it would be to relax on those swings after a delightful dinner. But I must resist the temptation and move on, since all the most captivating attractions are located on the right bank of the Oka River. I decided to cross the magnificent Kanavinsky Bridge over the river to a place where even at night, everything seems to glow. Now, the experts of Nizhny Novgorod might say that I was in a rush. If I had taken my time and walked a bit further from the fair building, I would have shown you the majestic Alexander Nevsky Temple. But instead, I find myself standing against the backdrop of the Nizhny Novgorod Petrol. And here is the Kanavinsky Bridge that I just crossed, with a temple that I never showed you turning yellow on the other side. In my last video, we strolled along Rajestvenskaya St in the afternoon, and I decided to start my promenade from the other end of the street this time. What can I say? This place looks absolutely stunning at any time of the day. It was delightful to stroll along Rajestvenskaya St during the day. In my previous video about Nizhny Novgorod, I delved into the street's history, highlighting its renowned buildings and sharing my impressions of its cleanliness, well-grooming, and cozy ambience. However, under the moonlight, the street's charm only intensified. The elegant lanterns and the artful illumination of the buildings cast a captivating glow. I must admit, I made a mistake in my previous video when I missed the magnificent Christmas church, the jewel of this street. Now, I'll show it to you. Even at night, it's simply breathtaking. You've probably noticed the lively atmosphere here, even at late hours. Numerous cafes and restaurants attract visitors, and I couldn't resist the temptation to sit in a cozy cafe under an open-work lantern, sipping fragrant herbal tea and observing the world around me. I imagined myself listening to snippets of conversations, empathizing with a weary waiter, and indulging in a leisurely afternoon. But as with all dreams, they must be set aside for another time. We will still have time to enjoy tea, but for now, let's embark on a walk together. Have you noticed the exquisite buildings lining the streets? This is because noble gentlemen and wealthy merchants settled here, each striving to outdo their neighbors in terms of grandeur and opulence during construction. Thanks to their efforts, we now have the privilege of admiring such beauty. Rajestvenskaya Street has undergone several name changes throughout its history. During the Soviet era, its appearance underwent significant alterations due to anti-religious sentiments. However, many historical landmarks have been preserved, continuing to captivate the eye. Here, you won't find glass skyscrapers, office buildings, or bright shopping malls. Instead, you will find harmonious blend of modernity and history. Numerous clubs and restaurants seamlessly blend into the city's historical fabric. One interesting fact, there is even a monument to bribe takers on the streets. It's called the Salt Scam and consists of two galoshes with its inscription, Honor and Conscience, on each, and a bag of salt. I'm walking past it right now. The story behind the monument is quite intriguing. Officials illegally enriched themselves by selling off excess government salt. Perhaps little has changed since then, as the monument was installed in 2012. And here is the inscription on the banner above the street, to be, not to seem. This small detail sparked heated discussions in the comments under my last video about Nizhny Novgorod. Many residents reacted negatively to this art object. And just right before the Kremlin, I was greeted by the monument to Minin and Pozharsky, a copy of the same monument adorning the Red Square. I continued our journey, entering the light of the temple of John the Baptist and passing the house of the merchant Bugrov. I also shared his interesting story in my last video, so make sure you watch it. If it weren't for the cars parked along the road, I could have easily felt like I had stepped into an ancient fairy tale. The same Ivanovskaya Tower, Nizhny Novgorod Kremlin, named after the church we just passed by, lies ahead. Through its gates, we'll enter the territory of the fortress. By the way, have you noticed how unusual the walls of the Kremlin are illuminated? In the dark, they acquire a pink tint. Unusual. I don't know about you, but I find these signs on historical sites a bit annoying. I understand their importance, but they do spoil the historical charm. Even before entering, you can sense the immense power of the Kremlin walls. By the way, the Nizhny Novgorod Kremlin has never been conquered by the enemy, though there have been numerous attempts. Well, here begins my unplanned cardio workout. I wanted to tease you a bit and ask you to count the number of steps I've taken in this video, but that would be too cruel. So just imagine you are playing Minecraft and controlling me as I run up the stairs. I have to run for a long time, and the stairs never seem to end. It feels like everything has reached its peak, but then there is another staircase waiting for me, wider and more daunting. At some point, I find myself trapped, still a long way up, and it's already a long way down. But after a bit of sweat, I finally reached a flat surface and was even glad to be alone here at such an unusual hour. From above, there is a breathtaking view of the night city. Of course, the camera can't capture all its beauty, but trust me, it's worth experiencing. If Rajestvenskaya Street is bustling with activity at this time, then within the walls of the Kremlin, I felt like I was alone with history. By the way, this church is as old as the city itself, small, modest, but incredibly important and valuable. Look at how deserted it is, the ringing silence, and the spotless cleanliness. Despite the fact that crowds of tourists throng through here during the day, this path will be filled with fussy visitors. But now, it's just me and such a fluffy caretaker. Slowly making my way through the territory of the night Kremlin, I reached the Nikolskaya Tower. A square travel tower with 3 combat tiers stands tall. The ground level of the outside is significantly lower than the inside, corresponding to the bottom of the protective moat. In ancient times, a drawbridge was erected over the moat. The defense of the gate tier was meticulously planned. In case of an attack, the drawbridge was raised using a special mechanism, sealing the gate opening. Casement gates were closed and cast iron grills, known as gers, were lowered between them. These bars became a trap for the enemy, preventing them from entering the fortress territory or venturing outside. In such situations, the enemy faced fire from the loopholes of the internal battle, targeting the travel chamber of the tower. These loopholes were present in all square towers, but they were exceptionally well preserved in Nikolskaya. The tower's height, along with the watchtower, stands at almost 30 meters. From this vantage point, the view of the tower itself is breathtaking. It's as if the tower is gazing upon me with its watchful eyes. As I descend the long stairs, I find myself at the base of the tower. I didn't linger here, opting instead to return the same way and re-enter through the same gate, leading me back to the Kremlin. By the way, the Nizhny Novgorod Kremlin is also slightly inferior to the Moscow Kremlin in terms of area and length of the walls. However, it surpasses the Moscow Kremlin in terms of complexity. It's hard to even comprehend, let alone construct such a magnificent structure. According to tradition, the Kremlin also houses an exposition of Russia's military power, showcasing various military equipments used during the Great Patriotic War. These exhibits appear sturdy and reliable, and I imagine they could easily travel over a kilometer if well lubricated. I find it interesting that I'm leaving the Kremlin through the same gate that I entered through in my previous video. Coincidence indeed. And immediately, there was a lot of traffic, as if I had stepped through a portal into the future. Didn't it seem so to you? With that, I decided to finish exploring the fortress walls and return to the bustling urban landscape. As I passed through the small square, I encountered another fountain, bathed in bright lighting. While they may not have been practical, they certainly brought a sense of joy and tranquility. I found myself drawn to the fountain once again, seeking respite after climbing the stairs and the fortress walls. However, like a flint, I resisted the temptation to sit down and rest, instead choosing to continue my journey. Straight ahead, I found myself on Bolshaya Pokrovskaya Street, a street that is reliably guarded by the presence of a policeman. In the past, these streets were often patrolled by real policemen who maintained order. Guess where the street got its name from? Of course, it comes from the intersection church located on it, a tradition among Russians that is deeply ingrained in their culture. If you're visiting Nizhny Novgorod for the first time, you would definitely want to make a stop on Bolshaya Pokrovskaya Street. It's a long street that stretches into 2 parts, a pedestrian section and a carriageway. The pedestrian section is even slightly larger than the famous Moscow Arbat. And here in Nizhny Novgorod, you will find a riot of bars, restaurants, and boutiques catering to every taste and budget, all nestled within the historic buildings. On the right side of the street, there is an old apartment building constructed between 1885 and 1887. It once housed the city's public library until 1904, and now it's a popular spot for locals to enjoy a meal. In general, The entire street is a treasure trove of historical landmarks and cultural heritage sites. Bolshaya Pokrovskaya Street is undoubtedly an ancient street, with its origins dating back to the 17th century. It was first mentioned in documents from 1602 and was originally known as Bolshaya Nikolskaya. However, in the 1820s, it underwent a name change and became Bolshaya Pokrovskaya. In the Soviet era, like many other objects, the street was renamed in honor of the revolutionary figure Yakov Sverdlov, who was born in house number 8 on Bolshaya Pokrovskaya Street. In the 90s, the street reverted to its historical name, but many old-timers still refer it to as Sverdlovka out of habit. Throughout the street, you'll encounter various art objects. I met a policeman, a shoe cleaner, and a photographer with a dog on my way. Some locals weren't fond of these unpretentious sculptures, which sparked controversy. However, I find them charming, and they don't detract from the street's charm. In fact, they pique curiosity because each sculpture holds a piece of living history. Let's take a look at one of these sculptures, the Merry Goat. Yes, you'll find such an art object on the main streets. Judging by the polished back, it's quite popular. To the locals, it resembles a horned deer from the coat of arms of Nizhny Novgorod. However, it's actually a symbol of the Merry Goat, a festival held in Nizhny Novgorod. After admiring the sculpture, I headed straight to the theater square. Every building surrounding it is steeped in history. There is the trading house of Polushkin and Ershov, the monument to Dobra Lyubov, and the Gorki Drama Theater itself. Opposite me on the left stands the apartment house of Kudryashov and Chesnakov, built in the 19th century. Notice the spacious balconies. As the evening light bathes the theater building in a warm glow, we spot a bronze statue of Yevstygniev, a renowned Russian theater and film actor who was born in Nizhny Novgorod and lived in the city for 25 years. Sitting on a wooden bench, the statue captures the essence of the city's rich cultural heritage. Here, like on Rajestvenskaya St, life is always in full swing. The atmosphere is pleasant, and walking here is safe and comfortable. Just be careful not to get run over by an unwary scooter driver. That myth that you can only walk around the city at night in Moscow and St. Petersburg is officially debunked, my friends. If you still have doubts, feel free to write in the comments and we can discuss it. Perhaps you can suggest some places to visit and things to see. I'd love to read and chat about this topic with you, but I digressed a bit. I have already reached the building of the Nizhny Novgorod City Administration. It's on the right, and right in front of it is another landmark, Michurina Manor. Built in 1865, a generous benefactor and a merchant lived here. And right in front of me is an interesting art object, and at the same time, a monument to the first trolleybus. Before it became a pedestrian street, Bolshaya Pokrovskaya was a crucial transport artery connecting squares and streets of Nizhny Novgorod. Of course, carriages, carts, and other horse-drawn vehicles passed through it. One of the first tram lines was laid here. Now, the tram line only crosses Pokrovka, but in memory of that very first one, several meters of rails were laid on modern Pokrovka. It's all lit with the light of small bulbs, attracting passers-by to take photos or record videos. Farther along the street, there is a street artist. Apparently, his works are in high demand because a whole crowd of passers-by gathered around his paintings. I didn't bother them and continued down the street, passing the building of the Noble Assembly on my left and the District Court on my left. And here we have a series of old houses. On the right is the house of Mitrofanov and Makeyev, and on the left is the apartment house of merchant Paltseyev, adorned with beautiful female figures on its facade. Nearby, a bronze cat sits on a bench, a popular spot for passers-by to take pictures. It's quite adorable, you must agree. Further to the left, you'll find a long line of apartment buildings. The ground floors used to house shopping malls and restaurants, while the upper floors were residential. Little has changed since those times, and now all the floors of historical buildings are filled with catering establishments or small shops. By the way, we noticed that wooden platforms serving as benches have been installed throughout the streets. Along the perimeter, various interesting historical facts about Nizhny Novgorod are written on them. So, as you relax on one of these benches, you can learn something new and fascinating about the street and the city as a whole. Now, I am approaching what I believe to be the most important attraction on Bolshaya Pokrovskaya Street. This is the building of the Bank of Russia, but it's not your ordinary building. It's a real medieval castle. Just look at it. Although it wasn't built during the Middle Ages, it was constructed between 1911 and 1913 to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the State Bank of the Empire. A competition was held among architects, and many renowned architects participated. However, the project was won by Vladimir Pokrovsky, the architect namesake of the street on which this magnificent palace stands as per his design. Well, I've reached the very end of Pokrovskaya Street, skipping many interesting buildings, sculptures, and squares to avoid overwhelming you. Here, I find myself in Gorki Park, the logical conclusion of the main street of the city. Now, this charming square offers a peaceful haven from the city's bustle. Nestled near the monument dedicated to the city's writers closest to Nizhny Novgorod residents, you can find a cozy bench to sit on and soak in the ambience. To commemorate the city's 800th anniversary, the square underwent a renovation, and in addition to the monument, vibrant art objects were installed. These are the quotes from the writer himself, serving as a reminder to learn from others and not to imitate them. The first quote reads, "Learn from everyone, do not imitate anyone," while the second emphasizes the importance of having faith in oneself and one's strength. I wholeheartedly agree with the great writer's words. As my nighttime exploration of Nizhny Novgorod draws to a close, I find myself feeling both tired and filled with delightful impressions. I genuinely hope that you, my dear viewers, enjoyed this city as much as I did. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It holds a great significance for me. Of course, subscribing is a must, as we eagerly anticipate many more captivating experiences in the future. I eagerly await your questions and feedback in the comment section. Until then, see you soon. Goodbye.